Peace. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about President Biden, how he is preparing for the primary election down in South Carolina. So he makes the trip down to the Black church in South Carolina, expressing his devotion and, more importantly, talking about the significance of the Black church. My question is, should the church be involved in politics? We'll have that conversation. Also, will the president show up for the 3 Black soldiers that were killed by a drone attack in Jordan? One report says yes, another report says no. You tell me what you think about the situation. Later on, we're going to be checking in with our sister Octavia Brown, who is a therapist and owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health, to talk about healing intergenerational trauma. We'll have that conversation and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Happy Tuesday, folks. Can you believe that we're already at the end of the first month of 2024? Already there, folks. Jeez. Wow. Where has the time gone by? All right, folks, thank you all so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. As we're streaming on a number of dope platforms, let's start with our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Go to our website today, download the app for free, follow us on social media at Black Star Network, and throw something in the bucket for us as we have these conversations, putting out this content just for you. And your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. We want you to be investors and stakeholders in this movement. So just learn how by going to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, we are streaming on Amazon platforms. We're on Amazon News and your Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video. You can check us out on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. We're also on the Freevee Network, where you can find us there on Now under News. And we're on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, The News, and Opinions. Now, we're also on various streaming sites, various social media sites. So you can find us on Roland Martin's Facebook page, as well as Roland Martin's YouTube channel. And you will also find the illustrious Culture Crew on both of those spaces. A big shout out to my crew, checking in all the way from around the country in different parts of the world on the X platform. We're on, we got the crew on Facebook. And of course, we got our crew that's a part of the chat on Roland Martin's YouTube channel. Let's see who's checking in right now. I see Pastor Damon Blissett. Hey, Kings and Queens. Peace, Pastor Damon. Pastor Damon's hitting up the Block church as he does so well. Thank you, Pastor Damon. We got Tiana checking in. We also got Cindy D. Mingley, Natasha Surge, I see you. Brian Christian, I see you. Good afternoon, big brother. The Stephanie Humphrey channels once again being a part of the conversation. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Sister Debbie Muhammad, peace and blessings, Sister Debbie. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation as well. Smooth Approach, I see you. Pretty Brown, Mimi 726, Janelle, my sister Janelle Fields is checking in. Hey, Janelle, good to connect with you once again. And folks, you could be a part of the Culture Crew by just checking in with us online. Just jump in on the Facebook page. We would love to connect with you. But also we are on Roland Martin's YouTube channel, and that's where you can find the illustrious Culture Crew. All right, folks, let's jump right into the conversation. We got so much to cover. And in this first discussion, I wanted to talk about how the president now is stating the case, how he's making a move. Now, we've seen 2 GOP primary elections, the one in Iowa, the one in New Hampshire. Now, it is the Democrats' turn, as now the official presidential campaign season has kicked off. And the first date, of course, has based upon that move that the Democratic Party did last year, where they've made the decision to up South Carolina's contest from being like from number 2 or 3 to being the first contest of the year. And of course, this is in hope to bring some more support. to really shore up black voters, folks, because we know what happened in 2020 when Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina put his vote of confidence behind President Biden. Then guess what? History is made from that point on. So South Carolina is up for the first Democratic primary. That's happening this Saturday, February the 3rd. So y'all don't want to miss out on the opportunity to be a part of history. If you're down in South Carolina, I hope folks are excited, going to go to the polls, and will be voting in big, big numbers. But because the whole country, especially folks in Black America, we are looking and seeing how folks in South Carolina are moving. So the president went down to South Carolina for over these past couple of days to try to connect with Black voters in particular, shore up the support of the Black voters, talking about those issues. And one of the things and one of the places that he went to was the Black church, folks. That's right. He went to the Black church to really put it out there that the Black church is the bedrock of the community, is the example. And I think this is very interesting. This is not about President Biden. We have seen a bunch of candidates go through this process that in order for them, they have it in their heads. And I don't know if this has changed or not, because I'm just thinking now, I think about it more. And y'all tell me if this is right or wrong or whatever the case may be. But the pathway that to reach Black people has traditionally been through the Black church, but has that changed? Has that changed? But President Biden went down to South Carolina. I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I'm going to share with you what he said down in South Carolina about the Black church and get your take on this, the significance of the Black church, as he puts it out there, that this is the example, using King quote words from the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and talking about the support that he has gotten as a result of the Black church. My thing is this the best way to connect with Black voters right now? And should the church, this is going to be another part. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later on this week. But how involved should the church really be in national and world politics? So we're going to have that conversation a little bit on the other side. I want y'all to stay with me, stay in tune, get ready to post your comments in the chat, and stay riding with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now
We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. We wanted to kick off the conversation talking about what President Biden has said about the Black church being the example. And he has put it out there, folks, that if it wasn't for the Black church, he wouldn't be in the office. But he praises the Black church and says, quote, the world would be a different place without their example. Now, this is because the president visited South Carolina in the hopes of getting people excited about the primary that's going to be held on Saturday, February the 3rd. This is the first primary on the for the Democrats on their calendar. So he's down there, of course, with Representative Jane Clyburn. And he spoke at St. John's Baptist Church on the final day of a 2-day visit to South Carolina to rally Black voters. He also visited a Black barbershop. And he spoke at a state Democratic Party dinner after he flew in on Saturday. And then he went to church on Sunday to talk to Black voters. Now, he said, he referenced Dr. Martin Luther King. I want to share with you the quote that he used. Let's put that up, please, Lise. Thank you. He said, well, you give us a mountaintop. He asked the worshipers to imagine what would happen first if there had been no Black church to turn to in times of darkness. He said, well, you give us a mountaintop, you give us a promised land, you give us a dream and a faith that we shall overcome, can overcome. Of course, these are echoing the words once spoken by the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then he goes on to say, and you push us toward a more perfect union, you really do, to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice together. And what a gift to the nation and the world you've been. He also said that your prayers mean everything. A lot of praise for the Black church. A lot of praise for the Black church, and justifiably so. The Black church has been a bedrock of our community for many, many decades, many, many years, right? And it has gotten us through the best of times and the worst of times. It has served as the target of both the greatest moments of our history, and the target has become the target of some of the most horrific acts of our sojourn here in America. So the Black church definitely is an example of what faith looks like. But I wanted to pose a question. Is this the best path to reach Black voters? And I'm talking about Black church. Now, the church has changed dramatically. We know that. And this is just like an introductory conversation, folks, as we have this. So we're just having a little bit of an introduction, because later on this week, I want us to get into a more in-depth conversation talking about what pastors are doing around the issue of Gaza. So we're going to have some discussions around that this week, God willing. But should the Black church, do you feel like this is that the president is really putting it out there, talking about the significance, talking about the importance of the Black church? And let's talk a little bit about this. Should the Black church be the space and the place for the president or for any elected official to come to have these conversations, right? We already know there is this ongoing kind of law of we don't want to mix church with state, right? So that's the way America currently works. But then there's also this belief system that we need to rely on the faith that we have, and that faith should, quote unquote, spill over into our faith in this democratic system. But we also know that the church is changing. The demographics of the church is changing. How the church operates is changing. The church is getting out of the four walls and into the streets. You have more pastors, Black pastors in particular, who are seeing their role more as prophetic teachers and not as prosperity promise makers. Y'all get that one? More church leaders, and I know some of these great pastors that are part of the crew, they are moving along the prophetic teachings of Jesus Christ. And they are moving, and then you have some that are still trying to hold on to becoming prosperity promise makers. And this creates so much of an issue within the church, somewhat of an issue. So let's talk about this. Crew, I want you to post your comments, share your thoughts as we have this discussion, talking about, do you agree with the president and how he praises the Black church? And I want to get your take on that. So post your comments. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube channel and on Roland Martin's Facebook page. All right, let me go to what y'all have to say around this. Like I said, we're going to have more conversation, but we're going to talk about this. Monkey Confessions checking in. Always good to connect with you, Monkey Confessions. You said, give us policy. Monkey, you have always kind of been on this track that you want to hear less about the symbolism, more about the substance. I understand the sentiment. Give us policy. I understand that wholeheartedly. Cindy D, you posted something. You said all the slaves in America had was Jesus. Come on. That's it. That's all we had. That is all we had. Our faith was was the sustaining factor. Our belief in God. It was the sustaining factor. Cindy D, you also said that it is that the Black churches today just don't, in response to what Stephanie Humphrey channel posted, Stephanie Humphrey said, Black churches today just don't want to get involved anymore. And I think that is the case. I think the case is, Stephanie, you also posted, Brother Faraji, the Black church is still a good meeting place for political candidates, but candidates should also connect with grassroots organizers to help them go to other Black spaces. Absolutely. I agree. I don't think a lot of our people are in the Black church as much as we used to be. As much as we used to be, folks. Not to say that they're never there, but the church dynamic is changing. You have older folks. You have more women in the church, right? You do have some men in the church, right? You do have, so you're starting to see some younger men in the pulpit. You're even starting to see some younger women in the pulpit preaching the great word of God. But there's a slow change and it's a slow transition. But I hear you, and I agree with you there on Sister Stephanie, that grassroots organizers needs to help these candidates go into other spaces. Janelle, you said, although younger voters have moved away from the Black church as the go-to community infrastructure, but reliable Black voters look to clergy as leaders. That's right. That's true. That's true. But we're not a monotheistic don't we always say that, y'all? We're not monotheistic. Black folks don't always on the same page. And years ago, during the civil rights movement, during the Black Power movement, we saw more of us congregating in certain spaces, right? Now, we all over the place. We might have a little in the faith institutions, whether it's the church or the mosque. We might be in the community organizations. We might be in the street organizations. You know, you see it's kind of sprinkled all over the place. You see it sprinkled all over the place. So when the candidate like a President Biden or other candidates or other political figures come to these spaces, they have to, things have changed. Things are looking different. Pretty Brown Mimi, you posted something. Mimi, you said, I don't like people protesting Biden in Black churches. I think it's disrespectful. I think that was, and any of y'all can correct me on this. That was during the last visit that he went to a Black church, right? They kind of booed him about the Gaza policy. You know what I'm saying? And Mimi, tell me if that's what you're thinking, that when we seen these kind of clashes, between, you know, the president when he's in a church, and especially a black church, and then you have these other folks coming into the church and they're booing him on a Gaza policy. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Here is the thing, y'all. Y'all ready for this one? Y'all ready for this? The thing is, you can't talk about peace and prosperity, redemption and faith in one breath, then you put money behind, you know, efforts of war in another breath. You can't talk about how Jesus walked, but then something else is on the other side. One hand is doing one thing, another hand is doing another thing. Can we talk about it like that? Can we really talk about that? Because I think that's part of the issue, right? That's part of the issue. The beautiful thing of what Dr. King and a lot of our Black history makers did is that when they came from the church space, they used the church as the guiding light for all of their decisions, not just for one or two. But Dr. King, he came from that, right? He redefined, I would even go as far as to say, y'all, and y'all can disagree with me on this, but he redefined that ideology, or that theology rather, that pastors shouldn't be involved in social justice efforts. He redefined that. He pushed the limits to that. Because we found that as much as we could talk about faith, you gotta talk about fighting against the powers that be of this world. Because faith is not just isolated, you know what I mean? So there is a time for that. There's a place for that. And I think the Black church is a great refuge for that. But we've seen it in example after example for those who take the mantra of Jesus and Jesus the Christ, and taking the mantra of those that love these stories and all of these things, these lessons and these guiding lights that came from the church, and how they used it in the modern day times, how they applied it. I think it's something in that. I think it's something in that. Definitely something in that. Janelle, you said many of our Black church leaders take the separation of church and state to heart. They are more likely to get audited, and tax exempt status is vital. White church leaders boldly cross that line. Absolutely. Absolutely. Churches have become, for lack of a better word, in some cases, Forbes 500 companies. Did I say anything wrong? That's how churches have become. They've become these Fortune 500 rather, not Forbes, but Fortune 500 companies, you know? They generate a lot of revenue. And I'm not talking about the politics and all of that right now, like how much the church is bringing in. I'm just talking about the significance of it, especially going into a year like this, y'all. Like, where do Black folks go and find refuge in a time where there is so much uncertainty, right? And I think the church is being confronted right now. I think, and we're going to have more conversations about this, but this is a very trying time for the church. This is a very trying time for the people. This is a very trying time for faith in general. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation on the other side, folks. I would love to get what your take on this as we talk about President Biden. Also, we can't ignore the fact that 3 of our very own Black soldiers were killed by a drone attack in Jordan, and the politics around that situation, because even in the great loss for those families, those lost their loved one, they have to hold on to something. And President Biden, in this visit to St. John Baptist, took the time to acknowledge that the sacrifice those 3 Black soldiers made. But I'm gonna share with you some of the political things surrounding their respect, surrounding how we are honoring them. It is going to absolutely just make you say, what? I'll share with you the latest of that. So stay with me, stay right with me, stay posting your chat, posting your thoughts in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. We're talking about how President Biden visited St. John Baptist Church in South Carolina and preparing for the February 3rd primary that's going to be kicking off in South Carolina this weekend. He visited a black church, St. John, and talked about the importance of the black church, talking about the importance of getting of the black church making the example the black church has made on black folks, this country, and the rest of the world. Very, very inspirational stuff coming from the president, right? But it opens up the conversation talking about what is the role, what is the, what pathway should the black church take moving forward. Also opening up the conversation is about whether the black church is still the place to go to connect with black voters. And the other question is, should the black church getting involved in political affairs, such as hosting a president, getting it, speaking out on certain issues and all of those things? Because a lot of us are still, I think a lot of black people in this country, we see the church as being a sacred space. Like Mimi has put it out there. She doesn't like to see people yelling and screaming. It's disrespectful. So the church still holds a sacred place in a lot of our hearts. Even with me, my grandmother was a Baptist. So, going to church with her, having that experience, I understand why there was so much love. I felt like, you know what, this is the place. And so even me, growing up and having that experience, even though I come from an Islamic background, I understood it. And looking at the type of woman that my grandmother was, who was by far one of the most divine individuals in my life, the type of woman and the things she stood for, I understand the power and the importance of the Black church. But some folks don't. Some folks don't. And I think that even now in 2024, there's a lot of questions that the Black church is confronted with to see, and more importantly, to see like what role will this institution play moving forward. Now, my brother, Pastor Damon Blissett, I was waiting to hear from you, big brother. But Pastor Damon, he's put it out there very succinctly. And I appreciate Brother Damon for saying this. You said the church's number one priority is salvation of people. Boom. Amen. Amen. Everything else should be spoken on and dealt with, but is secondary. So if we look at that as the metric, salvation of the people, and then we deal with everything else. If we're talking about redeeming souls, then we're looking at somebody else. If we're talking about introducing a life to understanding, introducing life to God, then everything else. I get it. If we use that as the metric, then that should be the reference point by which we move forward on on our relationship with political leaders, our relationship with institutions, how we should look or how we should be involved in the systems that we are all involved in. You see what I'm saying? But it first starts with salvation of the people, talking about getting the people, mind, body, and spirit right. Getting the people to reflect a higher level of consciousness, right? So we're talking about salvation. We're talking about freeing people from the confines of, quote unquote, this word, whether it's the confines of inferiority, the confines of racism and sexism, the confines of poverty, militarism, as Dr. King often talked about, the confines of the culture that we place upon ourselves, the confines of trauma. Come on, Brother Damon. That's what I got from you, brother. That's what I got from you. So you're talking about something deeper. So we're talking about saving people's lives. Now, when you bring in an individual, whether it's the president, whoever the case may be, when you bring in folks, right, you have to start from that premise. Is this person, do they stand for a cause, or do they represent a cause that speaks to that number one priority of salvation of the people? I'm gonna just let it like that. Let's just put it right there. Brother Damon, thank you so much. Brother Willie, you posted, we cannot forget the role of some Christian organizations and their blessings on war, them blessing soldiers going into battle. Yep, that's right. That's right. That's right. Can't forget that. Thank you, brother, big brother Willie. Tanya Petway, you said, I was offended now that it's election time. Now he want to go to the Black community. I will not be used for my vote again. And we see that, right? And this is not even about President Biden. I think a lot of people, and to be, let's just keep it real, Black people, we call for this type of leadership to come to us. You don't see them at the Black church. I've been around enough election cycles, and I know the talk among Black folks. He don't come to this church. He don't come to this part of town. He don't come. This person don't come here. They don't come there. So we invite them into these sacred spaces too, right? We want to see them in these sacred spaces. But maybe it's time, y'all. Crew, maybe it's time to say, look, if your policies don't speak to saving lives, as I'm going back to what my pastor and brother Damon said, if it's not about the salvation of the people, because you can't create policies that will preserve life. Woo! Come on, y'all. If we use that as the premise, saying, look, I would entertain you, but your policies, the things that you advocate for, don't speak to the priority of the church, which is saving lives. Come on, y'all. Tanya, you went as far as to say, my sister, I believe we should sit this one out. Woo. That's Tanya Petway, y'all. And Pauline asked the question, Tanya, are you talking about this election? I think, and Tanya says, yes. Yes, I'm talking about this election. Alexandria, Baker, Hadera, thank you so much for checking in. You said, now's the time for Black folks to negotiate on George Floyd Act and the Civil Rights Voting Act and affirmative action. This is the best time to leverage the Black vote for advancing the Black agenda. Woo! I like it. I like it, Alexandria. I like it. I think this is the perfect time. We have like this small window of time to get some firm commitments on some of these issues that's been sitting on the back burner for so many months and years. Why not? Some people say, well, no, we can't, we just got to keep the boat moving, but we got to get something out of the deal, y'all. I hear you, Alexandra. I hear you. We don't have this type of time because we need some firm commitments early. Because we don't know how the election is going to roll, right? You know, you're looking at a Trump and the uncertainty of that situation, and you're looking at a Biden. We don't know. We don't know. So why not let's get some firm commitments on where do you stand on this? I mean, how do you plan to approach that? And where do we stand on this? This is what the Black church could advocate for, y'all. This is where the Black churches can advocate for. Learning to love myself in response to my sister, Alexandria. Baker Hadera, you said learning to love myself. You said there are organizations that are fighting voting injustice around the country. We have had some Supreme Court rulings denouncing voting laws. However, Republicans are ignoring the ruling. So we know what the playing field looks like, learning to love myself. We know what the playing field looks like, and we can't play no games. Felita Cavett, thank you for checking in. A lot of new voices in the chat today, and I'm so very happy to hear from y'all. Felita, you said, I like pastors in the spirit of William Barber, no matter of the faith, is the kind of person who support the humanity of people. Amen. I love Pastor Barber, man. Pastor Barber, of course, he's a regular on the Black Star Network. He's an advisor. He is a voice for our people. He is a prophetic preacher, right, of the word. So you're right, absolutely. That's why I said there's a difference now. I think that we are getting out of the prosperity promise makers now into the prophetic preachers, and I'm so happy to welcome my brothers to be in that space. Come on. Nicole Smith, you say you have to see and hear Roland Martin do the review of Pastor Ed Young from Second Baptist Church in Houston. His charitable status did not change. If it was one of us, ours would have. Absolutely. So we're looking at a very serious situation here. Now, look, I'm going to take a final pause in this first hour, but when I come back, let's talk about them soldiers, those 3 Black soldiers very quickly, because now people are saying it was initially said based upon a phone call that the president gave to the families of those 3 Black soldiers when they asked them, Mr. President, will you show up at this memorial for these 3 Black soldiers? They asked each family, these families of these soldiers asked them, and he said, yes, he would be there. Now, something different, something different. And I don't know. I can't say that if it's just a blatant. I can't say if it's just I don't know what to call it. But if you have 3 Black soldiers who were killed while fighting for America by a drone attack, and a memorial is being had, and the family is asking you, Mr. President, can you be with us to stand with us just in solidarity, just out of honor and respect for these 3 Black soldiers, young Black people who gave their lives for this country. And I'm going to share with you what his communication staff team had to say about this situation. Stay with me. That discussion is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening with this situation of those 3 black soldiers that it was killed by the drone attack. And I'm just pulling up the information here, folks, because this situation is getting a lot of momentum. People are saying, is this president ditching this memorial for 3 black soldiers that were killed, even though he has talked to the families of the soldiers? And as it was reported by TheRoot.com, the families are preparing to bury the 3. Now they're looking at President Biden to see if he will make an appearance as they receive the bodies. Now, I want to give you the context of this. Let's show quote 1, please, Lise. This is from CNN, that today President Biden spoke with the families of the American troops who were killed and will attend a dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base on Friday. The president voiced gratitude for the 3 service members and told their families, quote, how proud we all are of their service, how we mourn and feel sorrow over their loss. Now, this is according to John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman. He told reporters aboard Air Force One. Biden, quote, made sure that those families knew that not only was that service and sacrifice going to be honored and respected, but they will continue to get the support that they need, according to Mr. Kirby. Also, in the phone call that the president normally gives to families who lose loved ones in the service, Biden gauged the family's feelings about his attendance at the dignified transfer, and all of them supported his presence at the solemn event. Now, that was for the transfer. The question becomes, folks, will the president show up for the black soldiers at the memorial? Because now that was for the transfer of the bodies. Now we're talking about the memorial, burying the families. Well, this was reported by The Root. Take a look at this one. This came out about 3 hours ago from The Root, that the bodies of 46-year-old Sergeant William Rivers, 24-year-old Specialist Kennedy Sanders, and 23-year-old Specialist Breonna Moffett, they're being flown back from the Syrian border to the Dover Air Force Base following the strike. The Defense Department said that these 3 soldiers were killed after an uncrewed aerial system attacked the military base located in Jordan. The trio were part of Operation Inherent Resolve, created to defeat ISIS. Now, the families are preparing to bury these 3, and so they're wondering if the president will show up as part of the memorial. According to Mr. John Kirby, the National Secretary Council spokesperson, let's show that quote really quickly here, Lise. As the families prepare for the burial, all eyes are on Biden to see if he will make an appearance as they receive the bodies. However, the National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters Monday that he didn't have anything on the president's schedule to speak of a memorial. It's not on the president's schedule. Now, are we bringing up this story to just, oh, no, it's not on the president's schedule. I'm going to just let y'all figure that out. Crew, you tell me what you think. Should the president show up? Will he show up? Will he show up for these 3 black soldiers? Let's put their faces up on the screen once again, Lise, please. Thank you. Sergeant William Jerome Rivers there, Specialist Kennedy LaDon Sanders, and Specialist Breonna Alexandria Moffett. You have an older brother and these 2 young sisters. And some people are saying that he should show up not just for the transfer of bodies, but he should show up at the funeral. Is that a big thing for any one of us? Should he show up for the actual service, for the memorial? Do you think that he should show up? Come on, crew, talk to me. Tanya Petway, you said, LOL, he can't have all of these agendas in his head at once. He just forgot. Sister Debbie, you said, Debbie Muhammad, you said, I don't see the president showing up for the funeral either. Janelle, you posted, most presidents don't show up to the memorial or burial. And Cindy D, you checked in and said he did show up with the bodies. Tiana, you checked in and said, no, he shouldn't be at the funeral. I would love to get your take as to why you said that, Tiana. Tiz, you posted, we have to push these damn presidents to get what we want. Every GRP looks to get something out of politics. We are the only, every group looks to get something out of politics. We are the only group of people that vote and hope to get something. Crazy, just crazy. We do have this view, and I think part of it is us, but I think it's also part of the narrative that we have been fed for so many years that now we're finally breaking up out of this idea that the only thing that you have to do as to be an active citizen in America is to cast a ballot. We don't talk about the fact that not only should you cast a vote, but then you have to go to work to make that vote a reality. That is 2 different things. And I think to your point, Tiz, that's the problem. It's culturally. We have always been conditioned to think that all we got to do is show up and pull a lever or push a button, and that all will be well. Oh, we just show up to vote. But how big is this? Is this a big deal? And I'm bringing it just to us. I just want to just have this very quick discussion. Is this a big deal? about the president showing up at the memorial services for these three black soldiers that gave their lives for this country? Is it a big deal? Some of you have suggested, Monkey, you suggested sending Vice President Kamala Harris. Alexandria Baker, Hadara, you checked it back in and says absolutely he should go. Cammy in Philly, you said he normally meets with the families at the White House after the funeral. Cindy D, he should send VP Harris. I'm loving all of these comments. Thank y'all for posting. Young Sikh, you say, does the family want him to show up? Doesn't that matter? Yeah, I'm sure he does. Tiana, you say, if the president show up at the memorial service and then you get people protesting him. And Sister Debbie, you said showing up for the memorial service isn't going to get what the black community needs. But in this particular moment of time, in this particular place that we find ourselves in this election year, can it just be a gesture of the president saying, we normally don't do this, but I think we should make an exception. Will it matter? Does it matter to Black America whether the president show up for the memorial services of three black soldiers who gave their lives for this country? Will it matter to you as crew? Does it matter to y'all? If the president doesn't show up, will y'all come back on the show and be like, Faraji, the president didn't show up. See, this is the stuff I'm talking about. Brian Christian, my brother, you said, I think he should show to give the families his personal condolences and improve the nation, that he needs to do better regarding the Israel-Hamas issue and truly mean it by calling a ceasefire. Come on. Yeah. Mingly Natasha Surge, you said Trump went to Diamond's funeral and made it about him. Yeah. But Brian, I like the point that you made, brother. I like the point that you made, that to give the family his personal condolences. But even if he shows up, he may not even have to say no words. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he does say some words, something like that. But I don't want you to politicize a moment like that. You know what I mean? That's my concern. Like, if I want him to show up, but then at the same time, I don't want him to show up because I don't want the moment to be politicized. Y'all, you see what I'm saying? That's just where I stand on it. So we will have to see. We will have to see. And if he doesn't decide to show up, I don't think it's going to make or break anything. I think sometimes that, you take a moment like this and people kind of make it bigger than what it is. People throw the racial undertone, like these are three black soldiers. This is a white president who is seeking black votes. This is a good time. But I don't want to politicize the life of these three black soldiers for a vote. You know what I'm saying? So if he shows up, so does that mean that, we can't still press the president on all of these other issues because he showed up for, it gets into this very crazy space. So we will have to see. We will have to see. I'm just bringing it to y'all attention, but certainly we will have to see. And it's not about just showing up. It's really about doing something. If you don't want this thing to continue, then there's a different conversation that needs to be had. And so, God willing, we're going to have more conversations about the church and politics later on this week. I'm expecting to talk to some pastors about the call for ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war and so much more. So we will revisit this conversation later on. All right, I got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about intergenerational trauma and how we can heal from that. I'm going to be checking in with a sister who is a therapist. She's a licensed therapist, and she is the owner of the Urban Mental Health Institute. And going to talk to us a little bit about how we can heal from our intergenerational trauma. I'm going to be checking in with my sister Octavia Brown. So stay with us. The conversation is coming up on the other side, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And if you're just streaming in, or if you're watching us, I hope you're watching us from our home network of blackstarnetwork.com. If not, let your friends and family know the importance of supporting Black media like never before. You can go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com, download the app for free, follow us on social media, but more importantly, we're asking for your donations to continue to power us through this digital space. We want to have you as investors and stakeholders and take this process and take these conversations to the next level, but we can't do it without you. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, we're streaming live on Amazon platforms, on Amazon News, on Amazon, on your Fire TV. You can check us out there. We're also on Amazon Prime Video, where you can find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, The News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV, The News. We're also on the Freevee Network, where you can find us on now under News for Black Star Network. And finally, we're on Flex TV, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us on the Live TV, The News, and Opinions. All right, folks. For this conversation, I wanted to have this in a very, very special way. I was able to connect with a sister who's doing fantastic work in the space of mental health, and she's doing work not only just with individuals but with families. And after seeing some of the things she posted on social media, got me intrigued, and I reached out to her, and we finally were able to connect and talk and really build on some of the things that are plaguing our community. So I am very, very happy to bring a voice to the station, to this network, and here to the show here on The Culture to talk to us about how we can go about solving, or rather healing from intergenerational trauma. And I want to welcome now to the airways of The Culture here on the Black Star Network, my sister Octavia Brown, who is a licensed therapist, and she serves as the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. Sister Octavia, welcome to The Culture. Good afternoon.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Good. All right, let me throw something out there. You posted something. Now we were already talking before then. But let's at least let me know if you can. I want to post this video that has been circulating on TikTok, and I think it's a very interesting video. But I think it is indicative of where we see a lot of relationships are, especially with mothers and daughters. Let me play this short video from TikTok. Take a look at this.
And you have the worst attitude. I don't know where you
Mom,
get
I
it from.
don't have an attitude problem. Oh my God.
Rolling your eyes? Oh, yes, you do. I don't understand where you get it from. You were such a nice little girl. You're just evil. You're just so oh my God, your dumb daddy calling me. Hold on. Why you calling me you broke down, bald-headed, ugly, dusty, weak behind, can't change a tire, sweaty, armpit, having ass, stink, pee-pee, little boy?
Bro, I was just calling to tell you my grandma got hit by a truck, man.
I wish it was my truck she got hit by. You deserve it. You don't even deserve it, grandma. You deserve nothing. Dirty ass. My bust his car windows, Jasmine Sullivan style. He don't know what's coming to him.
Mama, look in the mirror.
What? All I see is a bad bitch with a hatchet. Anyway, fix your attitude. You're going to end up just like your daddy with broke windows. Now, excuse me. I got some work to do.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, Octavia. Wow. Why did you post that? What made you want to post that?
Well, I think the first thing for us to recognize is that, because we know everybody chuckled a little bit. Everybody laughed a little bit when they saw that. It's probably a lot of Black mothers who saw that and resonated with that and was like, yeah, I've had those type of conversations with my daughter. I can tell you, I, as a Black mother, when I first saw it, the first thing I did was run to my daughter and say, look at this TikTok. And we bust out laughing. And she's like, that's you. And so I think the first thing to recognize and understand it, because it is, why we do, and that's part of our culture too, is that some of the family dynamics that are really unhealthy are so normalized that we laugh. Like it's very funny, and that at times takes away from the seriousness of them sometimes, and how that those behaviors, although they may be funny, we look back years later and we're like, oh yeah, remember my mother did this, or remember we used to have to go get the switch off the tree and get beat with the switch, while we sit back and laugh, that it isn't really important to understand that those experiences they impact you, and they, while we might not consciously be thinking about it or even be aware of how those experiences that we had, that is very much considered to be a norm in Black culture, how that impacts the way that we see ourselves, the rest of the world, the way we move, our beliefs, our values, and overall just how our behavior, and sometimes, a lot of times it impacts in a very unhealthy, in a negative way.
And because it impacts us in this unhealthy, negative way, but it's so prevalent, it can be seen as normal, right? Like unless you're at a conscious place, unless you're in a new space in your relationship, and more importantly, you had a new space within yourself, this can be seen as normal stuff, right? Like I never forget, Octavia. Like I used to do a lot of speaking in schools. And I never forget, I was talking to some students, and we were talking about young people getting involved in leadership. And I was like, well, young people can always do some great things for their neighborhoods. They can, go out and start picking up the trash. This is small things. And I say our neighborhoods don't need to be full of crime and stuff. And I'll never forget, this little sister raised her hand. She's like, Mr. Muhammad, I mean, my neighborhood is lit. I mean, and she went down the lines and she was like, we got drug dealers, man, we got this funny ass crack addict, we got these prostitutes. And I'm like, what? Like, But and then I asked her, I said, have you ever been to other neighborhoods where these things are not? And she's like, no, I never been to that. And I'm like, wow, that was an eye-opening experience for me, right? So some of the times, like we have gotten to this place where trauma is even a part of our identity as Black folks in this country,
Yeah.
right? That if you're talking about being healed, or you're talking about being in a place of peace within yourself, or you're having good relationships, it's almost frowned upon. How is that?
Well, I think the thing, and I really began to really resonate with just how deeply embedded and rooted our trauma is. When I read the book by Dr. Joy DeGrasse, she wrote the book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, excuse me. And in the book, she said that we were slavery's children. And that resonated with me. That really hit, and I was like, okay, like that's deep, because when you think about intergenerational family trauma, and the impact that it has on our children, that what she is saying in essence is that when you go back to our ancestors who were enslaved, the parental figure was slavery. So therefore the enslaver, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective and you realize that, okay, when you take a grown man or a grown woman who are adults and very much already very connected with their identity and sense of self and true authenticity, and then you strip them of everything, even their name. You can't, they have to take on a new name, and you beat them, and you force your ideologies and beliefs and values onto another individual. You, in essence, become a parental figure, because now that person is no longer able to care for themselves, provide for themselves, and therefore very dependent on the enslaver for everything that they need, And so when you look at generations of behavior that presents within the Black community, we have to keep in mind that until we go back and heal that trauma, that was imposed upon us by our quote unquote forced parents, which is the enslaver, that we don't know anything different. And at this point, we're completely, when they say stay woke, we're completely asleep to the fact that we are indoctrinated still, and that all of that trauma lies in our unconscious mind and is very much driving our behavior. And so, and then that's not even that. We're looking at from the environmental standpoint. If you think about biologically, the study of epigenetics studies how our environment within itself, like literally changes the way our genes express themselves, right? And so we know that not only can this trauma be passed down through learned behavior, unconscious, experiences, storytelling, things like that, that genetically, our ancestors passed down the trauma of slavery through our genetics. And it's very much still present to this day. So it's a norm for us, right? And on top of all of that, there is almost a deeply unconscious fear of doing anything different, right? And think about the stimulation alone. When you go to these communities and they're lit, that's very stimulating to the brain. And so there's always something that's happening, which keeps your brain in a sense of like fight or flight all the time, right? And then if you try to go to a community that's different, even though you might know that this is a better environment, there is a deep sense of uncomfortability because this is not my norm.
So it's like it's like you go back to what's familiar, even though the familiar may not be the healthiest option for you.
Absolutely. And we all do that in some sense, right? If we look at the ways that we are, take just the trauma of slavery aside, we know that in this country, we are probably the most unhealthiest country. We do not eat foods that are natural. Typically, we are indoctrinated, for purposes of capitalism, to eat things that do not serve our bodies well. And even when we know that this is not something we should be eating, how difficult is it for one to just stop eating something that you've been used to eating for a long time? Or when, when cigarettes was a thing, how difficult was it? Even after, the Surgeon General was saying, you're going to get cancer if you smoke these cigarettes. How difficult was it for you to just stop smoking cigarettes? And you have to think about the picture. You have the biological part of it. The brain is used to that now. And then, just the fact that this is something that you have associated with a sense of calming, even though it's not healthy, right? And so that same type of dynamic very much presents itself with our behavior as Black people in the Black culture.
Wow. Nicole, you checked in as you're talking this. We're talking to Octavia Brown here. Nicole Spicer, you said, I took a Black history class in undergraduate school called The Psychology of Oppression. And we talked about some of these issues. Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to talk about it because I want to delve a little deeper because Octavia has been talking about things. You folks, she is the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. She is a licensed therapist and social worker. She's here to talk to us about healing from the intergenerational trauma that we may carry and we may pass on to our children or to our nieces and nephews or to the young people in our lives. We're talking a little bit of how we can disrupt that trauma cycle. So stay with us. The conversation continues with Octavia Brown and with you right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm chatting it up with my sister, Octavia Brown, who is a licensed therapist and social worker. She's also the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. Y'all can check her out on her website of urbanmh.com. That's urbanmh.com. There's the site right there, Urban Institute of Mental Health. Sister Octavia has posted some fantastic blog pieces talking about her personal experiences, her life. She put herself out there in a big way, y'all. She talks about her personal life, but then she also talks about some of the lessons that she's learned from the ups and downs of her life. And more importantly, she helps us to connect the dots on where they impact her mental health and how it impacts our mental health. So it's very, very enlightening thought pieces that she has written. And y'all can check it out on her website at urbanmh.com. Also, all of the other services and all the other information that she provides as being the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. Sister Octavia, people are checking in and sharing some very important thoughts about this, because as I'm listening to you, right, we understand as Black folks in this country that our experience in chattel slavery has done a great deal of damage to us, even down to the cellular level, right? There are now reports, and there's been a lot of conversations that says that, look, when you are oppressed, when you are under tyranny, when you have experienced what Black folks have experienced, it is going to be passed down from generation to generation. It becomes hereditary. And that psychology, as McCole Spicer posted in her comment, that psychology of oppression is a pass from generation to generation. So we have the documentation, we have the science and research to prove that. But do we have the excuse to keep saying that because of chattel slavery, because of Jim Crow, that we cannot grow, that we cannot get to a better place, that we cannot break the cycle of trauma? Do we have that excuse?
So, I love that you asked that question, because I think that I've been doing this work for a very, very long time, and I've had all the emotions associated with it, where it's compassion and just sorrow and happiness and joy, and then anger, and then kind of like this attitude of like, what if things just never get better? And it's really important for like every last one of us to have a great deal of compassion, mercy, and empathy, because it is absolutely something that we can heal from. But the journey is one that takes a lot of courage to start, and it's not easy, And so when you think about we have a very unique situation as Black people, we're not just healing our own individual trauma, we're healing layers of trauma. And I mean, deeply, deeply embedded layers. And so you have your own trauma experiences that, again, it wasn't like the abolition of slavery happened and there were all of these people saying, hey, come sit in this therapy chair and let's process what you've just been through for the past, hundreds of years. And so we're like, most of us are still completely unaware that we have even experienced trauma, and because the expectation that we will suffer is very much a norm in our community, like just Black suffering is a norm. Many of my clients and the clients who come into the Institute, which we created specifically for BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, they have no idea that they have experienced their own individual trauma, And so when you have that issue and we are unconscious to the fact that we have all of these years of trauma and these layers of trauma that we have to heal from, and we don't even recognize our own trauma, let alone intergenerational family and ancestral trauma, and then there are not, I hate to say it, our organization at UIMH, there's not a bunch of organizations out there like that has created, a mission that says we want to decolonize the minds of Black and brown folks. We want to deconstruct societal indoctrinated beliefs that do not serve our people. And we want to liberate the mind so that we can liberate our people. You know, that is something that is not as popular. You know, most of even most therapists and psychologists are trained in a way that we're not even trained how to appropriately render services to communities of color to even effectively bring healing. So can it happen? Absolutely. Is it going to be very difficult? Is it going to take a lot of work, even from a societal level, to be able to embrace the fact that, okay, people of color, they don't necessarily benefit from the ways that we have been traditionally trained to render therapy from primarily white institutions, you know, and things like that. It takes a lot of work, but it can be done. But we have to always remember to have empathy, you know, for our people, because again, we have layers and layers and layers of trauma that we have to heal from.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, Octavia. I think part of my issue is, and really it's an issue and a concern, that we continue to use our experience as a crutch. I mean, there's so much knowledge out there. There have been so many soul healers and faith leaders and those individuals who have come to render us whole. And in 2024, it's still interesting that we're having these conversations as if people don't have power. And we have power for a lot of things. And I'm talking about Black folks. Black folks, we got so much power. And I'm not talking about politically or economically. I'm just saying within ourselves, there's a resolve, there's a resilience, there is a fighter within each one of us. But I'm wondering, do we just kind of give up, right? We're like, I can't do this anymore. I choose not to do this anymore, right? Whereas our ancestors, they were facing, insurmountable odds just to even breathe. And now we're in 2024 and we're much further along. And, you know, seems like some of our people are still like, this is so hard. And I'm thinking, like, we have access to technology. We have access to books. We have access to people like yourself and others who can help us through navigating through all of this pain and trauma. What is the excuse about? What is stopping? You know who is stopping us? Even you could say, oh, it's the white man. The white man ain't stopping us from being who we are. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, we could talk about policy. I'm talking about a person saying to themselves, I want to be a different person. I don't want to be a broken individual. I don't want to be a scarred individual. I want to be a healed and whole and positive. And I want to be an individual that when I wake up in the morning, I see the reflection of the higher self. I see a reflection of God. Tavia.
I get it. I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Like I can't personally. I just, when I hear that, this is not like, oh, this is just talk. I've seen men and women's lives change because they have been exposed to knowledge.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My life is changing because as I'm growing and learning and understanding and maturing, and I'm opening myself up to different knowledge and I'm opening myself up to different understanding of things, is changing.
Yeah.
And in 2024, the brother who is laying on the ground drunk still has some consciousness. In 2024, the sister who is on the street corner prostituting herself understands the dynamics of power and understands. You see what I'm getting to? Like, we're not as dead as many people want to make us believe. We actually have a lot of consciousness now. What seems to be that big wall, though?
So it's, well, because we can sit here all day and answer this question, so I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. But to the sister who talked about the psychology of oppression class, you really have to understand the psychology of oppression, meaning that, I will never forget reading a book written by Miguel, sorry. But the book is called The Four Agreements, okay? And in the book, even though it had nothing to do with what we're speaking about right now. But the book talked about how, and he literally said, like, human beings are like domesticated animals, right? And so from the time that we're born, we have been indoctrinated. We have been conditioned to behave in certain ways, right? And some stick, some don't. But when you really think about what ways a person can go about, if they want to be evil and indoctrinate another human being and make it stick, you have to implant fear. Okay. And so
Okay.
when you recognize that, it sounds so simple, right? It sounds so simple because there are sometimes individuals who have the knowledge, have the exposure, but there's such deeply rooted fear that it's almost like I'm stuck and I'm frozen, right? And even if you think about what happens to the brain. So, and I think it's really important to understand what trauma is, because trauma it can be one experience. It doesn't matter what the experience is, but it could be one experience that just completely disrupts your functioning. It disrupts the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the rest of the world. It distorts your vision, it distorts your views. And what it does, it activates your fight or flight system, which is your fear system. And your body is saying that in this situation, there is something that's threatening my life, my well-being, my ability to live. And so when that system is activated, it takes a snapshot memory picture of it. It will never forget it. And anything that's associated with that picture is always going to trigger a fight or flight response, right?
Yeah,
and when you have unnatural things like colonization, that is completely unnatural and motivated by greed and other selfish means, that completely disrupts an environment. And again, I talked about trauma just being one situation. Now we're talking about years and years and years of embedded reminders and confirmations that this is something that you need to be definitely afraid of. That's the way that your brain is looking at this, right? Even sometimes, and every person is different. We have to look at the uniqueness of each person. But there are some people who are going to be really struggling with the idea of stepping outside of their norm, even though that norm is unhealthy for them. And that's where your healers are able to come alongside and do the best that we can to encourage and be a guide to help individuals get through that and be able to seek liberation through decolonizing the mind. And that is really important when you recognize that the ways that you have been indoctrinated, the ways that your mind has been indoctrinated to think and move is exactly what keeps you oppressed. It's designed that way. At this point, Black people, we uphold our own system of oppression because we do not recognize the inherent power that we have. And in order for us to do that, we have to liberate the mind. And that is why services like these and conversations like these are so important, because when you can come alongside a person of color and say, hey, you have power, you do not have to accept this as your lived experience. And yes, you can reconnect to your ancestral roots and reconnect to your cultural roots and walk in your true authenticity, you are forever liberated. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, Octavia. I'm telling you, it makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you. I think that fear has certainly restricted our will to the point where we don't see past our own pain and we can't get out of that cycle. But I'm like a lot of folks that at a certain point, when do you say enough is enough? Let me just share with you before we take our next pause. Stephanie Humphrey, you checked in and said, as an adult, I could no longer blame my upbringing for my issues. I had to take accountability and navigate my issues so I could be healthy and maintain healthy relationships. Jesus was my answer. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that every Black adult comes to that point into their life, get to that point into their life where they have to ask themselves the question, will you allow your past to dictate your future? Right? Will you continue to go down that track and say, oh, my father wasn't there, my mother wasn't there? And I'm not discounting the impact that has made. But when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, and then you start to understand the mindset of your parents, like as you go into a journey of self-understanding, then guess what? It's like the creator takes you into the mind of your parents because you start to say, oh, damn, they were experiencing some trauma. And this is how they dealt with the trauma in their lives. When y'all start to go on ancestry.com and you start to look at the pain that was your grandfather, your grandmother, right? Stuff starts to open up to you because you're on this journey. Trust me, I'm a huge proponent, and I can testify to this. That the moment I started going inward to myself, it allowed me to go inward into my family.
Yes.
And then I started to understand some things like, man, okay. But then I had to start making some decisions, Octavia, to say, like Stephanie said, I'm not going to let my past define my future. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's continue to talk about this on the other side. We're checking in with Octavia Brown, licensed therapist, social worker. She's the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. Folks, we're having this conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Chatting it up with my sister, Octavia Brown, who's a licensed therapist and social worker. She's also serves as the owner of the Urban Institute of Mental Health. Make sure y'all check out on the website, urbanmh.com, the Urban Institute of Mental Health, where they're talking about liberating minds one session at a time. There it is right there, doing some fantastic work. My sister here is talking about healing from intergenerational trauma, and there's so much to discuss on this topic. And so we've been having, I think, a very, very enlightening conversation. And Sister Octavia has been talking about fear, talking about how fear is processed, how we have pretty much have been in this, not just in a cycle of trauma, we're also in this this unhealthy relationship with fear. And I want to go back to what the crew is saying here, Sister Octavia, because a lot of folks are starting to really speak on this. Sister Debbie Muhammad, you said, I do auditing sessions with a friend, and when I let go of those rusty locks about my past, I started feeling better. Skin tone got better, and I had a glow. But you have to want to change.
Yeah.
Sister Debbie, you are right on it. You got to want to change, Sister Octavia.
Yeah. That's the age old. For every healer, social worker, person in this field, is how do we motivate change, and that's a difficult question to answer, and I just want to commend every individual who said, this is what I did, and this is how I was able to walk on my healing journey and provoke positive change, right? This is how you liberate your mind. And when you think about liberation, anything that has kept you shackled, whether, so if it's, the way I was treated by my mother or my father, and saying that I am going to forgive and let go, that is how you liberate. But there is that, so many different things can motivate change. And to me, that is more of a spiritual journey, for that individual person.
Yeah.
Not everybody is ready at the same time. Like there are definitely times in my past where I know that the stuff I was doing, or like, the people I was dealing with, like, girl, you ain't gonna be dealing with those people. But I just wasn't ready. Like it just didn't connect that this is time for me to do something different, but when it does, and I do say, set an intention. I don't believe in forcing yourself to do anything that you're not ready to do, but you can set an intention and say, okay, this is what I want from my life. And then try to focus your time and attention elsewhere until you feel it connect. And you will. One day it'll connect, and you'll know that it's my time to change. And you'll be able to be ready for the journey ahead, because it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. So kudos to all the individuals who have started their journeys and are continuing on their journey to healing.
What does healing look like for the mother that was in the TikTok video that we showed at the beginning, right? Like I feel like, and I'm not going to say it because I'm a man and all of that. I can't say, well, but if we're coming across sisters in our community who exemplify that type of attitude and that type of view of herself, and she's relating to her children that certain type of way, where does that healing start? And what does that healing look like?
So I'll say this, especially because of the comment you just made, and this is so important for us to talk about, because when we think about the relationship between the cisgender Black male and the cisgender Black female, when we think about that relationship, is so divided. And a big part of that division is a lack of understanding, right? And so when you think about the Black woman who was in the video, I think the first thing that I off the break can tell is that she's been hurt. She has a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and she, it's important not to generalize. You know what I'm saying? But her experience is one that mirrors a lot of Black women's experiences, especially in their dealings and their interactions, experiences with men. And specifically Black men. And, Roger, you and I have talked about this, in our phone conversations about just how multi-layered and deeply rooted the trauma is between the Black woman and the Black male. We talk about, from a social perspective. I read a book one time called It's Marriage for White People, written by Richard Ralph Banks. And he did a lot of outlining all of the reasons that there is a steady decline in marriage within the Black community. A lot of the fault he did place on men, Black men in the book. And I can't say that it's all Black men's fault. I think a lot of it comes from just a very unique situation of the Black male and Black woman. The Black woman, she falls under two systems of oppression. She's Black and she's a woman. And so she has to deal with oppression at the hands of the system of racism, and then oppression at the hands of the system of patriarchy. While the Black male, he has a very unique situation because he is Black, and so he's experiencing all of the discrimination and the oppression from being a Black male. However, he has privilege in the system of patriarchy, but he can only exercise that privilege with Black women and Black children, and so you see Black women take a lot of the brunt of just a lot of past unhealed trauma from not only Black men, but she feels like she got to carry the entire community on her back often, and even when I look at the demographic of the clients we serve, and we've served well over 1,000 clients since we've opened our doors, over 60%, I think 80% is women. Black women or women of color who come in. And so you have more women of color who's coming to get treatment and not, now we do have men that come in, and we are so happy, and we congratulate every Black or brown male who comes in to receive services. But again, she feels like she has to carry so much. And so her need is to recognize that I need to heal from my past. I need to let go, just like a lot of the other Black women had said. I need to let go and realize that I do have power over my own life, and I have to put boundaries in place, right? And that's the biggest thing, boundaries. We really struggle with the implementation of boundaries in the Black community. And so I would say that was her first steps. Mm-hmm.
I would have to agree with you there, Octavia, because I see a lot of, I think men and women in our community, we struggle with boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned before, it's in our conversation offline, we have grown up under parents who understood boundaries, right? They were very hardcore. Like my dad came from that school of thought, like children should be seen but not heard. He came out of the military. A strong disciplinarian, right? And in some cases, what would be seen as extreme by some, right? That's the spaces that we come out of, especially if your parents are from the 40s, the 50s, and 60s, and you think about all of the social issues that were happening and where we were mentally in our community. And then we saw war coming into play. Then, of course, we saw the drug epidemics coming into play and how it affected and how it changed the view that our parents have about Blackness, about ourselves and families.
Yeah.
And it created like a certain type of Black culture, right? It created this Black culture. And so now, I think right now, Octavia, we're at a place that a lot of us, especially those of us who are parents, we're on the other end. We're like, nope, I'm not going to be that disciplinarian like my parents were. I'm going to allow my children some extended freedoms. I'm going to give them the liberty. And some people would say that is part of the reason why we're in this place today, that the reins have been loose a little bit too much for this next generation. How do we find a balance in all of that?
I think, and I laugh because we definitely talked about this. And there is, which, by the way, I am so ecstatic to see so many Black parents jump on the bandwagon of gentle parenting. Again, we talked about that ancestral trauma, and we talked about that the symbolism of the enslaver being the parent to the enslaved, symbolically, and looking at how from, I can even look at my own family's history of what discipline looked like from around the time of the abolition of slavery until now. And it was very harsh. And a lot of the disciplinary methods did mirror, what discipline looked like during the time of the antebellum slave period. And so when I see Black parents who say, hey, I know this does not work, and I don't want to render that same type of discipline to my children, and jump on the gentle parenting bandwagon. I'm excited about that. I think, but there also has to be an understanding of what that is. Gentle parenting doesn't mean that I'm not going to parent at all. We don't want to go from one extreme to the next, where we go from being authoritarian and then going to being permissive. You want to be right in the middle. And the biggest emphasis is to teach. We want to make sure that when we're parenting, we are there guiding, our children. And that, I believe, will get the respect of our children, knowing that we're there and we love them, and we are here to discipline out of love and not out of a place of fear, which is typically how I grew up, is that, we're supposed to fear our parents. But how you bridge that divide, you have to kind of meet into in the middle, and you want to be more authoritative, meaning that I can give my children the ability to express themselves and recognize that they're their own individual selves, who it's okay for them to engage in self-exploration and know themselves, while at the same time being here as a guide to protect and guide them when needed, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That certainly makes a lot of sense. And I think that is that is part of this process, right? Because we have to redefine those relationships. And more importantly, I think that, we have to be cognizant and conscious enough to say, you know what, some of the things that I was exposed to as a child by my parents were good, but then some of the things I was exposed to as a child by my parents were toxic. And being able to discern between what is the good things that we got from that parenting and parent-child relationship, and some of the things that we can kind of like, let's push that to the wayside, because I feel like we're at a different place. First thing, our children are in a different place. Black boys are in a different place. Black girls are in a different place. We are in a different culture. So, you have to kind of adjust for in consideration of all of these like nuances in our experience as parents and in our experience as families, right? And family unit has certainly changed. It's no longer just a mother, father, son, and daughter. It could be, the grandmother is present. It could be same-sex households that are present. It could be, a lot of us we were raised by our grandparents.
Yes.
So it brings a lot of different nuances. So there is so much more that we could certainly talk about. But Octavia, I want to kind of give you an opportunity for you to put it out there. How can people learn more about the work that you're doing, and more importantly, read about some of the things that you posted on your blog?
You can absolutely visit the website, www.urbanmh.com. Everything is there. Everything you need. If you want to sign up for services is there. Definitely read the blog. Definitely, there is a virtual calming room there. Lots and lots of resources. And so I just encourage our people as much as possible, get healing, go to therapy, and make sure you choose the right therapist, a therapist that you are confident that can accompany you on this journey, because this is a journey of self-care and self-love. And so it's important that you take it serious and that you have someone who can actually guide you to that healing that you need. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. And more importantly, thank you for the great work that you're doing, Octavia, with the Urban Institute of Mental Health. We truly appreciate you, and thank you for being so good for the culture.
Thank you.
All right, Octavia, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, sis. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Make sure y'all do your due diligence, support us. If you enjoyed that conversation, more importantly, if you enjoyed the work that we are doing each and every day here on the culture and on the Black Star Network, we ask that you support us. Your support means a world of difference for us. So just go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media and drop something in the bucket. We would truly appreciate it. Now, also while you're online, make sure you follow me, yours truly, Faraji Muhammad. I look forward to connecting with each and every one of you. You can follow me on Instagram at The Real Faraji, and on Twitter, on the X platform at Faraji. I would love to connect with you. Let's continue to build the crew. Let's continue to build the community. And more importantly, let's continue to inform and enlighten the culture that we have and that we are a part of. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Folks, stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Time is Roland Martin Unfiltered. I want to thank my fantastic production team for making this broadcast happen. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of the crew and part of the conversations. We had a lot of good conversations. Tomorrow, I'm going to check back in with my sister Suzette. We're going to continue to have discussions about what's going on down in South Carolina, as their primary election is coming up on the 3rd of February, which is this Saturday. And also, of course, we are getting ready for the kickoff of Black History Month. And do y'all know that on Black History Month starts on February the 1st, the culture will be celebrating its 2-year anniversary. Yeah, I had to look at the calendar as well. It's like, what? 2 years, folks. 2 years we've been on air. So we got a lot to celebrate as we move into the new month and later on this week. But I thank each and every one of you for your support. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Peace.